Stretching across the horizon, where the Atlantic meets the Chesapeake, lies a boundary of water so vast it was once deemed uncrossable. But in the late 1950s, engineers dared to sketch a solution, a hybrid of bridges. A simple bridge wouldn't work. The U.S. Navy's massive fleet needed clear passage to the open sea, without the risk of a bridge collapse. In 1960, the first shovel hit the sand. It was the beginning of what would be called one of the 7 engineering wonders. A massive armada of construction vessels gathered, a floating city of iron and steel ready to wage war against the ocean. First, the seabed had to be conquered. Massive dredges clawed at the mud to create a stable foundation for the journey ahead. To walk across the water, they built the two-headed monster, a machine so specialized it could drive piles while perched on them. Steam hammers thundered day and night, driving 54-inch concrete piles deep into the earth beneath the waves. But how do you build a tunnel in the middle of an ocean? You start by building an island where none existed. Meanwhile, 2,000 miles away, in Texas, the tunnel itself was being born. Massive steel cylinders forged in fire. Tugboats pulled these massive structures through the choppy Atlantic, a slow-motion parade of engineering might. Finally, they arrived at the site, the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that would soon disappear beneath the waves. Beneath the surface, the work was even more difficult. A deep trench had to be carved into the ocean floor. A deep trench had to be carved into the ocean floor. Specialized barges used leveling blades to ensure the trench was perfectly flat, a bed of gravel for the tunnel to rest on. As concrete was pumped into the tube's pockets, the floating giant began its final. Suspended by massive cables between 2 barges, the tunnel section hung in the balance of physics and gravity. The tube slowly vanished. On the surface, only bubbles remained as 12,000 tons of steel and concrete sank. At the end of each tube sat the Gina gasket, a massive rubber seal that would hold the ocean at bay. As the water was pumped out from between the sections, the sheer pressure of the ocean locked them together forever. Now dry and sealed, the interior roadbed was poured, a flat ribbon of concrete deep beneath the shipping lanes. Ceramic tiles were meticulously placed on the walls, designed to reflect light and withstand the damp environment. On the islands, the tunnel finally emerged, transitioning from the dark depths back into the bright coastal sun. The massive foundations for the ventilation buildings were poured, the lungs that would keep the tunnel breathing. Giant fans, the size of aircraft engines, were lowered into place to circulate fresh air for miles underground. The first engineers to walk through the completed sections knew they had achieved the impossible. To protect the islands from Atlantic storms, massive concrete tetrapods were placed to break the fury of the waves. The portals were finished, the dramatic points where the open bridge suddenly dives into the mouth of the earth. Back on the trestles, a web of steel rebar was woven together to prepare for the final road surface. Paving machines moved in a continuous crawl, laying a ribbon of concrete across the 17-mile span. Skilled hands smoothed the surface, ensuring a perfect ride for the millions of vehicles yet to come. Miles of safety railings were bolted into place, the only thing separating travelers from the deep water below. Electrical veins were pulled through conduits, bringing power and light to the middle of the ocean. Light poles rose against the horizon, marking the path like a string of pearls across the Chesapeake. On the islands, amenities like restaurants were built, allowing travelers to stop and admire the view. A fishing pier was extended into the bay, turning a transit project into a destination for the public. Road markings were painted, the final white and yellow lines that guided the way to the other side of the other side. Overhead signs were hoisted, officially naming the tunnels that would soon become household names. At the entrance, the toll plazas were readied, the gateways where the journey officially begins and ends. Inside the tunnels, the lights were flickered on for the first time, chasing away the shadows of... Emergency systems were tested, every phone and sensor verified to ensure the safety of every driver. A final sweep removed the dust of construction, leaving a pristine highway suspended over the Atlantic. Divers performed one last inspection, checking the underwater piles for the final stamp of approval. From the air, the sight was breathtaking, a 17-mile miracle ready to open to the world. April 15, 1964, the ribbon was cut, and a new era of American travel was officially born. A motorcade of classic cars led the way, the first civilian tires to ever cross the mouth of the bay. For the first time, travelers could bypass the slow ferries, crossing in minutes what used to take hours. But the ocean is a harsh master. Constant maintenance began immediately to fight back the salt and spray. Massive nor'easters tested the structure, but the bridge-tunnel stood firm against the pounding of the Atlantic. Its status was cemented in history, recognized globally as one of the greatest engineering feats ever attempted. As the decades passed, the bridge became a victim of its own success. Traffic began to choke the two-lane span. The solution was clear. A parallel bridge was needed to double the capacity and keep the East Coast moving. In 1995, the pile drivers returned. A second bridge would now rise alongside the original 1964 trestle. Using modern high-performance concrete, these new piles were built to last for a century or more. For several years, drivers watched as a second miracle was built just a few hundred feet from their windows. For several years, drivers watched as a second miracle was built just a few hundred feet from their windows. Laser-guided paving ensured a surface so smooth it felt like flying over the water at 60 miles per hour. The toll plazas were expanded and modernized, preparing for a future of high-speed electronic travel. In 1999, the new span opened. Traffic was finally split, with 2 lanes dedicated to each direction. It was a perfect blend of old-school grit and modern technology. 2 bridges working as one. At night, the twin spans glowed across the water, a 34-mile loop of light in the darkness of the bay.